Hello, this is JB Helm. Have you ever heard of Sia? That's this woman here, Sia. And you could sometimes she has when she performs, she wears a wig to cover her eyes. Not all the time. She started out playing with bands. Here's a picture of what years ago. Now she's 50 years old. She played in a bit with a band called Zero 07, but her first band was Crisp, and then she went out on her own, and she also writes a lot of songs for other people, and she's a singer. What's interesting though is that she doesn't actually write, play an instrument. So what she does is she sings the song and records it, and then gives it to musicians, and they put the chords to it, the melody. But she already gives them the melody. She sings the melody, so they basically have to then create the chords to it. And she gets like about 50% royalties on all of her songs, and she's worth 30-40 million dollars or something like that. So she's had a lot of hit songs. A lot of famous singers and bands and different groups have recorded her songs and had hits with them. Now you can use the same technique to write songs with Suno if you're not a musician. Now I write songs. I've written songs for many years on and off with friends of mine and with different collaborators, where I write the lyrics and then they put music to it. Most of the time they'll establish the melody, but sometimes I'll say, I think, I'll sing it to them and say, I think this is how I think it should go. Now with Suno, I'll show you a song I recently created. It's called Good to Be Here. And this is the version that I'm going to show you. So now what I did is you go into, you can record your own audio track, right? So now I started with my lyrics. Good to be here. You put down verse, chorus, you this way, Suno knows which is which, and then bridge over here. And then I put down, give me a break over here, like a musical instrumental break, right? So you put your lyrics into Suno over here. You copy and paste. See where it says lyrics? Then as you go down, you put your prompts, like you tell it what kind of, like I put same tempo, upbeat, blah blah blah, folk pop. This takes a while to learn how to do this. It's a software program. You have to learn how to do it. You go down here, you go to more options, you click on that, and then you tell it what you don't want over here. So I have all these things like no belting, no audience noise, things like that. You pick out whether you want a male or female. Then they have this, weirdness thing, which, I just usually keep that pretty low. Style influence, that would be, the style that you give it. You put your title here. Now here's where you could put your voice in. So you can click, you can put your own voice in if you want to try to mimic your voice. But if you want to do an audio track, you put that in here where it says audio. So now I wanted to try to use my own melody for this. So I recorded, I used Audacity, right? This is, so see Audacity right here? It's a free program. And I recorded this. This is what I recorded right here. Now it's 4 billion years old. Been through a lot, we're told. The sun shifted. Now this, you see, I'm singing this with no instruments. No one could stop the cold. Let me go to the chorus here. Young men did oh, and no more fear. I'm glad to be with you. It's good to be here. As you can see, I didn't sing that well either. I could actually sing a little better than that, but it doesn't really make any difference because basically you have to just give it the melody that you want. And then you say create. It's going to create 2 tracks. If it comes out where, say it's a little slower than you want or something, then you just say, make it more, upbeat. In fact, you can even tell it how many beats per second you want, like in the styles here. See, I have here 112 beats per minute, BPMs. And I say upbeat through entire song. So, and then of course you can try different things as you go along, but this way you're writing the entire song, not just the lyrics. You're actually creating your own melody. Now, Suno still, gets a lot of credit because this is a very powerful program, and it's your songwriting partner, and of course it's doing the arrangement too, and you're kind of guiding the arrangement, but it's creating an arrangement, and it does a lot of the work, for you. I mean, basically, you just have to come up with the idea for the song, the title for the song, the theme for the song, and if you want, like, you could do like what I did, where you want to also give it the melody. If you don't want it to, you can just give it the lyrics too, and see what it comes up with. You could say, I want a country song, and and tell it what you want, or whatever kind of song you want. But like I said, you could do it the way Sia does it, where she sings the melody. This is exactly what she does. She sings the melody with no instruments, gives it to someone else, and says, "Okay, here." And then she shares the credits with them as songwriting credits, because they have to put the chords to it. So this is the song that I picked out of the ones that I generated that I like the most.
Now it's 4 billion years old. Been through a lot, we're told.
Now let's wait for to get the chorus. The chorus is the hook.
No one could stop the cold. Symbols rose from the third hour to the lands of near and far. Guns were made, bought and sold. Young men did what they were told. No more sorrow and no more fear. I'm glad to be with you. It's good to be here. No more sorrow.
You get the idea. So now I also put that on my YouTube page, and I created some graphics to go along with it, dress it up a little bit. So you can see here. Let's go into my YouTube page, and here it is. Good to be here. Lyrics by J.B. Helm, and then and I put some video in here too. So the whole thing with writing songs too is that now for me, I want to write songs that are catchy. Even if it's a slow song, it has to have a hook. That's a whole art in itself, because when you're writing lyrics, and I'll give you an example. My wife and I watch like shows like The Voice and American Idol, and sometimes people come on American Idol and and they'll write their own song. They'll do their own song even during their audition, and I would say almost every time the song isn't any good. So sometimes they say, the judges say, "Oh, that was nice," one of the mistakes that the singers make when they have their they do their own original songs is they write about something that means a lot to them, and it's very hokey, like it's like my grandfather died or something, and it's just like everybody's grandfather dies, unless you die before your grandfather. To them that may mean a lot, but it's not a good song. I mean, and the thing is that their lyrics tend to be like very basic. There's no real creativity to the song, and not only that, there's no hook. I've noticed that too, and they'll have like all these verses, then they get to the chorus, and it's almost exactly like the verse. You can't do that. If you want people to listen to your music, you have to have hooks. When you're writing lyrics, it's not just how the words rhyme, and they don't even have to rhyme really. It's not necessarily even the creativity of the message of the song. I mean, it's nice to have some sort of story in the song, some some sort of meaning to the song, but that's not the only thing. You could have the most meaningful words, but if there's no hook, there's no melody, there's no you have to have something. You can usually tell, by the way, if you record a song on Suno, and before you put it out anywhere on the internet, just listen to it for a few days. Listen, and if you don't find yourself like waking up in the morning and hearing that song in your head, like if it's not repeating in your head, then it might not be a good enough melody. Music is about melody. I mean, occasionally there'll be a famous song that doesn't have a great melody, but that's unusual. I'm talking about now. There are a lot of kind of songs that aren't that good, that are kind of fillers on albums that don't have that good of a hook. But I'm talking about songs that are hit songs. They have a hook. Bob Dylan has some songs that are famous that don't have a real good hook because he writes these really long verses and then he plays the harmonica and stuff. That's different because he's Bob Dylan, right? So like you're not Bob Dylan, I'm not Bob Dylan. We're not going to be able to be successful, or have anybody listen to our songs if we write songs like that. He's one of a kind. He's a very rare, kind of talent. Most songs, though, that people are willing to listen to and listen to repeatedly have a hook, even if it's a slow song. It just has to, Hey Jude has a hook. The chorus is beautiful. It doesn't have to be a fast song. And the thing is, with Suno, it's a very powerful program. If you know how to write lyrics, you can come up with, now every lyric you give it may not be a good song. You may have to give it, like 20 songs, to get 5 good ones. I have songs I've given it, and it's like, oh, it's no good, so I just delete them. I'm not going to just put out songs that don't sound good. Not every song. That's the way it is. Not every song ends up it's just like when somebody's making a film, like a director. A lot of the scenes end up being thrown out, being cut because they don't move the story along, or they're just not that good. Same thing. You have to cut the ones that aren't that good. And there's a certain magic to songs, so you don't really know until sometimes I have an idea. I'm not saying I don't have an idea. Sometimes I write a lyric and I think to myself, I can hear the melody and I think this is going to be a good song. But sometimes I'm not sure. Usually the less certain I am of whether or not it's going to be a good song, the less chance that it is a good song, because I'm not hearing the hook. Now, if I have a really good hook, though, I'll do what I just did with Suno, where I'll record my voice. If I don't feel like I have a great hook, I'll just give them the lyrics, see what they do. But Suno is a good songwriting partner. Now, I'll tell you what's the most difficult thing to do with Suno, right? You can write catchy songs. You can write songs that sound like hit songs, right? You can write good songs. The hardest thing to do is to write a great song. But that's the way it is regardless. I mean, if you're a musician, I don't care how good of a musician you are, how good of a singer you are. You're a singer-songwriter, let's say. You have a good voice, you're a good musician, and you're a songwriter, it's still really hard to write a great song, right? It's not as hard to write a good song, even a hit song. I mean, a lot of the songs that were, top 40 songs, over the last like 50, 60 years weren't, great songs. They just were kind of catchy and, people liked them. There was just some pretty goofy songs. I knew a guy years ago, he passed away now, but he lived a long life. And he wrote a song called Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, right? Which was a big hit. It was kind of, a goofy song, but it had catchy beat and, it was kind of funny. Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny. He made a lot of money off that song. So, hit song it's just something that clicks with the public. But like great songs, now if you look at somebody like Paul Simon, who's, a master songwriter, he has songs, The Boxer, Bridge Over Troubled Water, America. I mean, it's just Sounds of Silence. To write songs like that, with Suno, without Suno, it doesn't make any difference. Like very few people can write songs like that. Even very talented people. There are people that have made millions of dollars in the music industry. They don't have any songs that good, right? They have, they may even have a few hits, but not like, great songs. It kind of reminds me of Woody Allen. He's made like, I don't know, 60 films, 70, I don't know, over 60 films. And he says his only regret is that he's never made a great film. Quite, that's what he says. He's comparing himself to the films that he really thinks are classics. And he doesn't think he wrote any, films that good. But it is difficult. Same thing with movies. It's difficult to write a masterpiece somebody like a Paul Simon has several, brilliant, masterpiece songs. Very, very unusual to be that good of a songwriter. Not as unusual to write good songs though. There's a lot of people like if you have a knack for lyrics, you can write a good song with Suno. If you have a melody in your head and you can write a good song. If you're a musician, of course, then you can play your demo, record your demo, put it in to Suno, and Suno, you can create an arrangement. But yes, you can make, have hit quality up tempo or mid tempo or slow songs with Suno as long as you have a hook. You have to have your lyrics has to be have the hook, and it helps if they have some sort of story. Lyrics have a soul to them. And there's something about them that kind of touches people one way or another. It may not necessarily be dramatic. It may be something that's cute, but it has to be something that somebody kind of feels about the song, like they can relate to it, or there's just something about it that they like. Sometimes it's hard to explain. That's why, like, there are people generating their whole song on Suno, like the lyrics and everything. That's not going to be any good. AI does not have a soul, so they're not going to be able to create good lyrics. But anyway, that's my take on one of my takes on Suno. I think it's a very good software program, very good for songwriters, and you can write songs the same way that one of the great songwriters, one of the most successful songwriters in the business, Sia. That's how she writes her songs. She just sings them into a recorder. So this is JB Helm. Thanks for tuning in, and do me a favor, subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it.